Hey guys, so I said in the last one that I would read it. You know, the last video where I was talking about the subject, that I would read it. Um, I haven't looked beyond this page right here, so I don't know what to expect. But I read all this in the last video, but I'll read it again. And I'll kind of start it off in the same way just to keep the joke running. So the summary of Manacled. Harry Potter is dead! In the aftermath of the war, in order to strengthen the might of the magical world, Voldemort enacts a repopulation effort. Hermione Granger has an order secret, but had lost but hidden in her mind, so she is sent to as an enslaved surrogate to the High Reeve until her mind can be cracked. So keep in mind that this story diverges from canon following the conclusion of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So these characters are like 15 years old. Keep that in mind for some of the stuff we're about to read. Because, warning, this work is dark. Rape and non-consensual sex are significant and ongoing aspect of the plot. Bunch of 15-year-olds. There are also character deaths, psychological trauma, and yada yada yada. Viewer discretion advised. So we're gonna start chapter 1. Manacled. I'm assuming that's probably Draco. Okay, here we go. Oh god, it's got Umbridge in it. Oh, this is gonna be good. Are we gonna get some fucking Umbridge action? Oh yeah. That tiny little wand of hers. Oh, fuck. For a time, she thought maybe if she just let her eyes adjust, eventually some faint outline would be visible. I feel like I should be doing a voice for this, but I don't know what kind of voice I would do. There were no glimmers of moonlight slipping through so deep in the dungeons. No torches in the hallway. I was about to say tortures, but I'm sure we'll be getting to that soon enough. No torches in the hallway outside the cell, just more and more darkness, until she wondered sometimes if she might be blind. She had explored every inch of the cell with her fingertips. Oh yeah. Yeah. She's all freaking salad fingering the place. It's a pleasure for the tips. You know, she's like up against the wall, she's just like scraping her finger down. And she's like, ah. The door, sealed with magic, had no lock to pick, even if she had anything but a straw and a chamber pot. She smelled the air in the hopes it might indicate something. The season, the distant scent of food or potions. The air was stale, wet and cold, lifeless. Just like this story's about to be, I'm sure. She had hoped if she just checked carefully enough, she'd find a loose slab stone in the wall, some secret compartment, hiding a nail or a spoon or even a bit of rope. Apparently the cell had never held an audacious prisoner. No scratches to mark time, no loose stones, nothing. Nothing but darkness. She couldn't even talk aloud to relive the unending silence. It had been Umbridge's parting gift after they had dragged her into the cell and checked her manacles one last time. They had been about to leave when Umbridge paused and whispered, "SenLinYu!" prodding Hermione's chin up with her Hermione's chin up with her wand so that her eyes met. She said, "You'll understand soon enough." Umbridge giggled, her cloying sugary, you know, because when she has her little tea or coffee or like her tea, she takes like 50 fucking spoonfuls of sugar and adds, yeah. So I can imagine. Her sugary breath ghosted over Hermione's face. Hermione had been left in darkness and silence. Had she been forgotten? No one ever came except for Hermione, and maybe Umbridge. No torture, no interrogations, just dark, silent solitude. Meals appeared, randomized so she couldn't even keep track of time. She recited potion recipes in her head, transfiguration technique, reviewed runes, nursery rhymes. Her fingers flicked as they mimicked wand techniques, mouthing the spell inflection. She counted backwards from 1,000 by subtracting prime numbers. All the things that Hermione would do. Uh, she started working off. Oh, she started working out. Hermione's not so small anymore. Now she's major gains. She fucking just punched the door down, like whatever spell's there, she just punches it. It had apparently not occurred to anyone to restrict her physically, and the cell was spacious enough so that she could cartwheel diagonally across it. She learned how to do handstands. Becoming a demon, guys. She's becoming a flat-out demon. Soon enough, she'll be sitting there meditating in the middle of her cell and just hovering upwards. I seriously doubt anyone's going to get that reference. Spent what felt like hours doing push. Oh my god, she's also become One Punch Man as well. 1,000 sit-ups, 1,000 push-ups, and soon she's just going to be able to punch through anything. Voldemort doesn't stand a chance now. All she's got to do is punch him. She learned how to do handstands, spent what felt like hours doing push-ups and things called burpees that her cousin had been so obsessed with one summer. She found that she could slot her feet through the bar of the cell and do crunches. One Punch Hermione. While hanging upside down, it helped turn her mind off, counting, pushing herself to new physical limits. When her arms and legs turned to jelly, she'd slump down in the corner and fall into a dreamless sleep. It was the only way to make end of the war playing in front of her eyes. What do you mean? She's in a cell. What war is being played out in front of her eyes? Sometimes she wondered if she was dead. Maybe it was hell, darkness and loneliness, and nothing but her worst memories hanging before her very eyes, or hanging before her eyes forever. When there was finally noise, it felt deafening. The screech in the distance as a long abandoned door swung open. The light, blinding light. It was like being stabbed with light. Her eyes burst open and bled in all directions. She fell to the ground screaming in pain as her eyes somehow came out of their sockets and ran off. I don't know. She stumbled back into the corner and covered her eyes. She's still alive, she heard Umbridge saying, sounding surprised. Get her up. Let's see if she's still lucid. Rough hands dragged... Oh, God. Yes, now we're getting into it. Dragged Hermione from the corner and tried to pull her hands away with pull her hands away from her eyes. Even with her eyelids squeezed tightly shut, the pain from the sudden brightness felt like knives driving into her corneas. She wrenched her hands back to press them over her eyes again, ripping her arms from her captor's grasp. Oh, for Merlin's sake, Umbridge said in a sharp, impatient voice, overpowered by a wandless mudblood. Petrificus totalis. Hermione's body stiffened. Oh, that's not the only thing stiffening right now. Kidding. I'm kidding. You want me to prove it? Stiffened. Mercifully, her eyes remained closed. You should have been smart enough to die. Crucio! The curse ripped through Hermione's immobilized body. Umbridge wasn't the strongest caster Hermione had been cursed by, but she meant it. The pain tore through Hermione like fire. Unable to move, she felt like her insides were twisting into knots, trying to escape the pain. Her head throbbed as the pain built and built without any release. I love the words being used here. Let's see. After an eternity, the pain stopped, yet didn't. The curse was ended, but the agony remained coiled inside, as though her nerves were flayed. Hermione could feel her brain scrabbling to escape, to break free of the suspended agony. Just break, but she couldn't. Take her up for appraisal. Let me know promptly what the healer says. She was levitated with Wingardium Leviosa, because it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. I'm sorry. She was levitated, but the world remained a blur of sound and agony. So much sound, it felt as though the vibrations were grating across her skin. She must have been kept inside a barrier ward, because suddenly the air exploded with noise and light. She tried to hold on by focusing only on the tap of footsteps, straight for 10 paces, right, 30 paces. Oh, now she's going all Liam Neeson in that car scene where he's like in the car and they've got him like bound up and covered, and he's just like mapping everything out based on the turns and sound. Ah, she's going all Liam Neeson. She will look for you. She will find you. She will kill you. Uh, right, 30 paces. A left, 15 paces. Stop. One of the guards levitating her rapped on the door. Come in, said a muffled voice. The door grated open. Put her over there. Hermione felt her body drop onto an examination table. She felt a wand prod her. Recent spell work, immobilization, and the Cruciatus, answered a new voice. Hermione thought she recognized it, but her mind was too awhirl with agony to place it. While immobilized, the healer sounded peeved. How long? A minute, maybe more. A hiss of irritation. We hardly have enough as it is. Is Umbridge trying to ruin them? Strap her down. She'll injure herself otherwise when I take the spells off. Hermione felt leather straps bind her wrists and ankles, and something was forced between her teeth. There was a wand tap on her temple. Yoo-hoo, little witch! If your mind isn't already mush, this is going to hurt. A lot. But, he continued cheerily, you will feel better afterwards. Finite incantatum. Hermione's world exploded. I'm sure that's not the only thing that exploded. Because, you know, this is based on 50 Shades of Grey, so sure it's not the only thing exploding in that room at this point. Also, keep in mind, they're 15. It was like being hit with the Cruciatus curse all over again. Finally immobile, her body recoiled and screamed. She screamed and thrashed. The straps holding her down barely stopped her from arching backwards as she writhed and rocked and wailed in agony. It seemed like an eternity before she could stop thrashing. Long after her voice had given out, her muscles still twitched violently and her chest heaved with sobs. All right, you can go now, the healer said as he prodded Hermione again with his wand. But tell Umbridge, if another one arrives like this, I will report her for sabotage. Sabotage? Hermione cracked an eye open and watched the guards leave. Her vision blurred. Everything was agonizingly bright, but she could make out vague shapes, and the light hurt less. Or rather, other things hurt more than her eyes did. The healer returned to her. He was a large man. She didn't recognize him. She squinted, trying to see him clearly. Was it Hagrid? Oh, good. You're tracking movement. He turned her wrist to get the prison number from the Manacled. You know, they had a chance to do something funny here. They should have said number 394. You know, the page that they were studying in Prisoner of Azkaban, and Snape was like, page 394. That would have been great. You had a chance and you blew it. He pulled a narrow file off a shelf and furrowed his brow as he skimmed it. Mudblood, obviously. Hogwarts student. Oh, very good marks. Unknown curse to the abdomen in 5th year. Not a very good sign. Well, we'll see what we have to work with. He performed a complex diagnostic spell over her. She watched her magical signature float overhead, and various orbs of color arranged themselves along her body. The healer prodded them and scribbled notes. He was particularly interested in her abdomen, especially an orb tinged with purple. What? She rasped around the gag still between her teeth. What are you looking at? Oh, a variety of things. Your physical health, mostly. You're in a remarkably good condition. Where have they been keeping you? Although none of that matters if I can't figure out this old curse you're still carrying. He worked in silence for several more minutes before chuckling. With a complicated flip of his wand, an incantation Hermione couldn't make out, she watched as a dark stream of purple flame shoots from her stomach. Her inside suddenly started bubbling, and she felt something writhing alive among her organs. And then, just like an alien, something crawling inside her. It's a basilisk. She's gonna birth a basilisk or something. Some stupid shit. A miscast spell, the healer explained. Oh, wait, before she could scream... I'll have to skip something. Before she could scream, the healer sent a red spell streaking into her. The writhing stopped, and it felt like something had dissolved inside. A miscast spell, the healer explained. Someone wanted you eaten alive, but fortunately for you, their curse was incomplete. Incomplete! I fixed it and then canceled it. You're welcome. Hermione said nothing. She doubted any of it was for her benefit. Well, you're cleared. Eligible too. I think we'll get quite a bit of use out of you, although that cruciatus will probably require some therapy before you'll recover from it. I'll put in a note. With a flick of his wand, the straps around her wrists and ankles released. Hermione sat up slowly. Her muscles were still twitching voluntarily. Opening the door, the healer called out, "She passed! You can process her." He walked over to his desk. Everything was weirdly luminous. She squinted, so bright. She could hardly see past the light to make out the shapes around her. Reaching up with a shaky hand, she pulled the gag from between her teeth. They immediately started chattering. She realized that she was terribly, terribly cold. Too cold. The guard was approaching her, reaching for her arm to lead her away. She slid off the table and tried to stand. She wobbled. "Sir!" Was that her voice? She didn't remember what her voice sounded like. The words came out slurred, and all the luminous objects in the room seemed to stretch and distort before her eyes, as if she had been dropped into a goldfish bowl. The healer turned back towards her quizzically. "I think going into shh." The words couldn't seem to come out through her chattering teeth. She tried again. Shock. Darkness suddenly started seeping into the edges of her vision. All the luminous things faded until all she could see was the healer's concerned face swimming before her. "What are you looking at, Hermione?" Her eyes rolled back and she fell. No one caught her. Her head hit the corner of the table. Hard. "Fuck!" swore the guard. Even sound seemed wobbly and distorted. The last thing Hermione remembered was that she thought she saw might be Marcus Flint. Oh, that he might be Marcus Flint. Regaining consciousness felt like drowning in oatmeal. Hermione wasn't sure why it was the first comparison. Yeah. Weird. Comparison to come to mind. She fought to drag herself to the surface. Those giant oats and those delicious strawberry pieces holding her down. Moving forward. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure you guys are trying to take this seriously, and there's moments where you're just sitting there like, "John, fucking really?" Like that with the oatmeal. I mean, if I'm going to be reading this shit, I might as well make it entertaining for me. I mean, we're only on page 10. We have a lot more to go. She fought to drag herself to the surface, moving toward muffled voices, trying to make sense of them. 16 months in solitary confinement for the criminal. With light and sound deprivation. By all accounts, she should be entirely insane, if not dead. There aren't even any records on her, as if you dropped her into a bottomless pit. Look at this file. Prisoner 186 in the bed next door. Do you see how many pages there are? Checkups, blood reports, mental health sessions, prescribed potions. The amount of room service this person has, it's incredible. I even have the pictures of her to see how she looked before you maimed her. This one right here. This one here. Nothing. She was recorded as being assigned to this prison, and then she vanished. No one's seen her. There isn't any record of her eating anything for 16 months. Explain how this happened. There was a pause, and then Hermione heard Umbridge's simpering voice began wheedling. Wheedling. Oh, she said wheedling. There are so many prisoners here, I can hardly be surprising. It can hardly be surprising if one or two manages to fall through the cracks as Miss Granger did. Miss Granger. The other voice was suddenly horrified and stuttering. As in the Granger? You knew it was her. You tried to kill her. What? No, I would never. It is for the Dark Lord to decide their fates. I am merely a servant. Did you really think that our Lord would forget about a prisoner like Hermione Granger? Do you think he will be forgiving if he learns what you did? Oh man, I would love to see him frickin' just Avada Kedavra the shit out of her. Of Umbridge, I mean. It's pretty sad that you have a evil character like Voldemort and a character like Umbridge, and people actually prefer Voldemort. That is just how bad of a person and character Umbridge is. I didn't mean for it to go so far, go on for so long. It was simply meant as a temporary situation. You don't know her. You don't know what she's capable of. I had to be sure she couldn't escape or reach out. The castle was still being rewarded. Then by the time all the preparations had been made, she had flipped from my mind. I would never defy our Lord. The success of the enterprise our Lord has assigned rests upon your head and mine. If I discover so much as a hint that you have done anything else to undermine his agenda, I will report you immediately to him. As it is, Granger is now entirely under my jurisdiction. You are not to go near her without my permission. If anything else happens to her by anyone else, I will assume you were responsible for it. But she has many enemies, Umbridge voiced wavered. Then I suggest you oversee your prison carefully. The Dark Lord named her specifically in his plans. I will throw you before him today if that's what it takes to succeed. I have worked longer and harder to get where I am than you have, Warden. I will not let anyone get in my way. Go process the rest of them. The Dark Lord expects a report on eligibility numbers tonight, and I've wasted half of my day away, half my day fixing your mistake. A pair of footsteps faded. Umbridge's Hermione thought and hoped. She cracked an eye open, trying to take in her surroundings surreptitiously. You're awake. Isn't that like, you don't use one word and then immediately use it again? Not surreptitiously enough. She opened her eyes fully and looked up at the blurry outline of a healer standing over her. The healer leaned closer to study Hermione, and Hermione could... I'm just thinking about that book, The Healer. You guys remember reading that? The Healer? They made it into a movie. I don't think I've ever seen the movie. Hang on, what was that book even made? My mistake. It's called The Giver. I couldn't remember if it was The Giver or the Healer, but it's The Giver. Yeah, the story, like, remembering is Lois Lowry's novel The Giver. And I mean, I just remember where the euthanized, where people like got to a certain age and they were euthanized. That's what I was remembering. So it's The Giver. Anyway. Outline, the healer standing over her. The healer leaned closer to study Hermione, and Hermione could make her out somewhat against the brightness. An older woman, severe, with robes denoting medical seniority. You're Hermione Granger. Hermione wasn't sure how to respond to the comment. She should just say thank you. I am. I am. Nice to meet you. The overheard conversation hadn't shed light on what was wanted with her. She was important to some dreadful machination of Voldemort. You don't say that name. He who must not be named, even though I've said his name like 3 times already. She wasn't supposed to be dead or insane, and they wanted her healthy. They probably weren't supposed to torture her horribly again. She stayed quiet, hoping the healer was the sort who kept talking when people failed to respond. She was disappointed. I'll have to ask you, since no one else seems to know, how are you still alive? How did you manage to stay sane? I don't know, Hermione answered after waiting for several moments. Her voice sounded deeper and wobblier than she remembered. Her vocal cords felt atrophied. It was difficult to pace words. The consonants slurred together and then paused as though it required effort to push them out. I did mental arithmancy. I recited potions. I did my best to keep from slipping. Remarkable, the healer murmured, scribbling notes into a file. But how did you survive? There's no record of anyone feeding you, and yet you've kept perfectly maintained nutritionally. I don't know. Food appeared. There was never a set time. I thought it was intentional. Was she willing food into existence? What was intentional? The irregularity. I thought it. Her throat felt exhausted as she kept speaking. Was part of the sensory deprivation to keep me from knowing how much time had passed. Her voice got thinner and thinner with every word. Oh, yes, that would have been creative. And your physical condition? You were never removed from that room, yet you have better muscle tone than half my healers. How on earth is that possible? When I couldn't bear to think I'd exercise until I couldn't anymore. What kind of exercises? Anything, jumping, push-ups, crunches, anything that tired me, so I wouldn't dream. More scribbling. What am I hearing? Oh. Like, Grandpa, what are you doing? More scribbling. What kind of dreams were you trying to avoid? Hermione's breath caught slightly. The other questions had been easy. That went too close to something real. Dreams of before. Before I came here. Hermione's voice was quiet. Furious, she closed her eyes. The light was giving her a severe migraine. Of course. More scribbling. The sound made Hermione's muscles flinch reactively. You'll be here in the infirmary until side effects from your torture sessions are fully relieved. I will also be bringing in specialists to figure out what happened to your brain. Hermione's eyes snapped open. She hesitated. Is there something wrong with me? The healer stared at her contemplatively before waving her wand over Hermione's head. And then she just poked her in the eyes like, now sleep. You were kept in a sensory-deprived isolation for 16 months. The fact that you're still lucid at all is a miracle. The effects of such an experience can hardly be avoided, especially given the circumstances prior to your arrival. I imagine you studied some healing during the war? Yes, Hermione said, looking down at the blanket on her lap. It was threadbare and smelled so strongly of antiseptic she wanted to gag from the olfactory assault. She's like, it smells like hospital. Then you know what a normal, healthy magical brain looks like. This is yours. A simple wand manipulation drew the magical projected image of Hermione's brain into view. Hermione's eyes narrowed. Scattered across the projection were little glowing lights, some clustered, some sporadic, all over her brain. She'd never seen such a thing before. What are those? They're all growths. You have brain cancer and you're going to die in like 5 seconds. Sorry, inoperable. Can't do anything about it. What are those? My best guess is that they're magically created what is it? States. What's his? Hang on. Okay, I was gonna say fugue. That's what it is. I just had to go make sure that the pronunciation was going to be right. Fugue. Fugue states, what? At some point during your isolation, your magic began trying to protect you. Since you couldn't express any magic externally, it internalized itself. Oh God, we've seen what happens with that in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. In those movies and those books, what happens when you don't use magic for a while. Since you couldn't express any magic externally, it internalized itself. You worked hard to keep yourself from, as you said, slipping. However, the mind is hardly equipped to handle such a thing. Your magic has walled off parts of your mind. As a result, it's fragmented. It's fragmented you somewhat. I've already forgotten how to pronounce it. Fugue. I don't know why it slipped already. I don't know. I'm just fucking tired. It's like what, 9:30 at night. I should like I'm sitting here reading this, and I think it's because of the white background, but my eyes are going like fuzzy. Like I'm looking and it's just like in and out of like fogginess and blurriness and all that. So I'm doing my best. Fugues. Some point. Normally fugue is general, but these appear almost surgically precise. Although mind healing isn't my specialty. Hermione stared in horror. Do you mean I disassociated? Something like that. I've never actually seen anything like this before. This might be a new magical malady. A malady. Malady. Do I have multiple personalities? I don't know. Do you? Hermione felt suddenly faint. No, you simply isolated parts of your mind. I think your magic intended to protect them from mental attacks, but by extension prevented you from accessing them. Hermione was reeling internally. What don't I remember? You tell me. It's your mind. How am I supposed to let you know what you're not remembering? Bitch, we don't have a rememberal here. And even then, it only reminds you that you've forgotten something. But if you can't remember what you've forgotten, I mean, there's really no point having it, is there? Well, we aren't entirely sure. You'll have to be be the one to discover what you've forgotten. What are your parents' names? Hermione paused a moment, trying to calculate if the question was based on seeking a diagnosis or potentially to extract information. Blood drained from her face. I don't know, she said, suddenly feeling as though she couldn't breathe. I remembered I had parents and they had faces. They also had names and hair, but I don't remember their names. They were muggles, but I can't remember anything about them. She, struggling to tamp down on the panic rising inside her, she stared imploringly at the healer. Do you know anything? I'm afraid not. Let's try another question. Do you remember the school you went to, who you were best friends with? Who were your best friends there? Hogwarts, Harry and Ron, Hermione said, looking down as her throat tightened. Her fingers twitched uncontrollably. Good. Do you remember the headmaster? Dumbledore. Dumbledore. Do you remember what happened to him? He died, Hermione said, squeezing her eyes shut. Although the details felt fuzzy, she was sure. Yes, and do you remember the circumstances of his death? No, I remember he was reinstated as headmaster after it was confirmed that Voldemort, you-know-who had returned. You-know-who returned. Interesting. There was more scribbling. What is it that you remember of the war? I was a healer. I was in the hospital ward. So many people I couldn't save. I remember losing. Something didn't work. Harry died. They hung him up off the astronomy tower, and we watched him rot. Oh, that's lovely. Then they hung Ron and his family next to him, and Tonks and Lupin. They tortured them until they died. They put me in that cell and left me there. Hermione was shaking as she spoke. The hospital bed shook and made an angry creaking noise. The healer didn't appear to notice and scribbled more notes. This is very unusual and interesting. I've never heard of fugu state like this before. I'm I'm anxious to hear what the specialist thinks. Glad to be so interesting, Hermione said, her lips curling as she opened her eyes to glare at the healer. Now, dear, I'm not entirely callous. Look at it from a medical perspective. If there was anything in your past that would be logical for your mind to protect itself, it would be the aftermath of the war, which you are clearly traumatized by. Instead, what did you do subconsciously decide to protect? The identities of your parents? The Order's war strategy? Your magic didn't choose to protect your psyche, it chose to protect everyone else. That is very interesting. Hermione supposed it was, but it just felt like too much. How far are we? Oh, 35 minutes. We can keep going. I'm gonna keep reading this for 3 fucking hours. No, I'm not doing that. Fuck that. Just being able to see again was overwhelming. Being able to speak, being out of her cell, everything felt like it was too much, too raw, too bright. See, and then there I go, like with this eye, like it's just in and out, just getting blurry and not. I've had a long day. I'm freaking tired. But the show must go on. Go on. She didn't say anything else. After a few minutes of scribbling, the healer looked up again. Unless the specialist has an objection, you'll stay in the infirmary for a week to recover before we process you. That will give you time to acclimate the light and sound again, undergo the therapy you'll need for your torture recovery, and the concussion you got during your checkup. Yeah, because she fell and smacked her head on a fucking table. The healer started to walk away, but then paused. I hope my saying this isn't unnecessary, but I suppose, given your house and history, I should say nonetheless. You are at a crossroads currently, Miss Granger. What will happen to you? What will happen to you next is inevitable, but you have a choice in how unpleasant you force it to be. With that parting advice, a threat, a warning? Hermione wasn't entirely sure. The healer disappeared behind the dividing curtain. Hermione glanced around at her surrounding carefully. She was still in Hogwarts. She had been changed out of her prison clothes into a set of hospital pajamas. Pulling up the sleeve, she noted with disappointment that no one had made the mistake of taking off the manacles locked around each wrist. She held her wrist up in front of her face and to inspect them. They had been snapped onto her immediately before she had been imprisoned in her cell, and she had never gotten a chance to really see what they looked like. In the light, they simply appeared to be a pair of bracelets around each wrist. They shone like a new penny. They were copper-plated, as she had guessed. In the darkness of the cell, she had spent an untold amount of time trying to ascertain exactly what they were. The simple answer was that they suppressed her magic. How exactly they did so, and how she might get around them while blind and mute had taken much thought. She had finally admitted to herself that it was impossible to get around them. She began to figure out how they worked. She both hated and admired whoever had developed them. She was positive that, by the way the copper conducted her magic, that they had a dragon heartstring core in each of them, possibly even taken from her own wand. The manacles felt specifically attuned to her. In her cell, during all her attempts to wield wandless magic, the magic slipped down her arms towards her hands to be cast, and then just dissolved when it reached the manacles. Confirming for herself now that they were copper-plated, she understood immediately how it worked. Wow, we're just now at the end of chapter 1. My God. Copper sucked the magic into us. She remembered Bin's lecturing in the history of magic about the attempts to use materials other than wood for wands. Copper had been one of the obvious choices due to its natural magic conductivity, which in real life it is a great conductor of things. Unfortunately, it was too conductive. It sucked up any flicker of magic that it detected, whether it was meant to or not. Spells exploded out of copper wands before a wizard could finish casting. They could barely touch the wands without having them go off. 2 blown-up wand labs and the loss of 4 toes convinced wand makers to the makers to try something other than copper. How about titanium? The cores of the Manacled Hermione felt positive was iron. The copper paired with the dragon heartstrings snatched up her magic and then deposited it into the iron core where it was effectively neutralized. The ingenuity made her seethe. Then she coped. And then she coped and seethed. And then she did some more seething and then a little more coping. The iron manacles were common enough with wizarding prisons. They dampened magic enough to keep prisoners from casting anything powerful. It had always been impossible to fully neutralize a witch or wizard's magic with iron. They could always push a little bit of magic past it, or just let it build up until a wave of accidental magic exploded from them. The copper solved that. With an eager conductivity, especially aided with a magical core matching the prisoner's wand, the copper sucked up almost every bit of building magic inside Hermione. It effectively made her a muggle, which she was a muggle. You know, she didn't come from parents who were witches or wizards. They are both non-magic. She's a muggle. She's a filthy little mudblood. No. Okay, so that's chapter 1, it looks. Chapter 2. So far, not so bad. But obviously it's going to get worse. So, just hope you guys are ready, because I'm going to keep on going. Looking at the time, it doesn't seem like each chapter is going to be super long, especially if I'm not slowing down for commentary or whatever. You know, I'll make a few jokes here or there, but I'm just going to kind of, you know, like a session. I'm just going to keep going with it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. I can't wait to read the rest. And again, I'm not going to look at it or anything beforehand. I want to be just as surprised as you guys. I want to be able to read a sentence and say, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then question if I actually want to read it. So, but that was chapter 1 of Manacled, Harry Potter, 50 Shades of Potter fan fiction, or One Night in Hogwarts, whichever one you prefer. That's going to do it for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.